Welcome to week 3 lecture, and this week groups 1 and 2 made their presentations, and thanks for going first, group 1 and 2 members. Okay, so I went over the grocery entries from last week, week 2, and I found so many entries not quite following 100% the guidelines. So it is really important to follow the guidelines word by word. So first of all, don't forget a timestamp and a word count. And if you just cite a reading and don't put any timestamp, that will result in 1 point deduction. And in your content, minimize the definition and focus on the personal reflections, because the definition, most of us are likely, more likely know of the definition, right? And in the concept section, put the term that you want to define and colon and the number. If you're defining the first, then you just put number 1, and if you're defining second time, put number 2, right? And it's important you don't put any space before and after the colon, right? So the example, if you're defining Korean wave, Korean wave, there's a space in between Korean and wave, that's fine, but see the colon right after, no space, and the number 1 and no space, right? So no space before or after the colon, then you put the number, right? The reason why it's important is that our Moodle glossary system will recognize if you put a colon as a different term. So the same term can be defined up to 3 times, right? But if you add an extra space after colon, and the system cannot detect that as a duplicate entry, and it's not gonna warn you. You will think that it's a new term, right? So no space before or after the colon, right? As an example, Korean wave, colon, no space, number 1, right? Okay, let's see all the examples after the following are all wrong, right? Why the first one wrong? The Korean wave, colon, no space, 1. Don't put any the or all. So then if you put the Korean wave, then the system will think that it's different from Korean wave, right? Have second one, number 1 at the beginning and Korean wave. Don't put the number at the beginning, right? You should start with the concept itself. Korean wave, colon, no space, number 1, right? Second one, don't put a number sign before the number, see? And next one, Korean wave, colon, space, 1. Don't put a space after a colon, right? And the Korean wave, no colon, no space. That's also wrong, right? So you have to follow this, how to write the concept section word by word. Don't miss anything. No extra spacing, no extra symbol, no or the, and don't miss a colon and the number, right? And you can define, the same term can be defined up to 3 times. So if you miss any of these requirement, starting next week, you will have a 1 point deduction, or even though you make your posting, right? For this week, I gave every entry a full 2 point, regardless errors or not, mistakes or not. So I wrote it what you have to fix in the comment section at the end of your entry. So please check your week 2 entry and see what kind of error or mistakes you made, and try not to repeat it to avoid any point deduction, right? I don't want to deduct any point, but some people will fix their behavior only after get some deductions. So this week 2, was like a learning week. So I gave you a full point regarding the error, but don't make the same mistake, right? And if you don't have anything on the comment section, means your entry was fine. You followed all the guidelines word by word, and thank you for not making any mistakes. Those ones who don't have any, my comment, you don't see any comment from me, then you don't need to fix anything, right? But if you see any comment, just look carefully and don't make the same mistakes for this week's entry, right? Okay, so let me comment on group 1 and group 2's presentations. Both groups did an excellent job, and organization was good for group 1. good intro and good conclusion, and nice to see all group members' faces and names except one member's face there. And there was some transitional work, but a little more can be helpful. But it had a good transitional work because one host was introducing, its guest, I should say, right? And the coverage of reading was really well done, and the linking section was good. So we have like you have in the linking section you have the link to external readings and internal readings, like other readings from the course, and external sources. It can be a reading or it can be a news coverage, any other external sources, right? So in the linking section, to make a really good linking section, you have to show the relationship. You have to state the relationship by comparing or contrast, right? Just introducing whatever relevant external or internal source, just saying it to summarize what the external source or other related internal reading says is not enough. You have to show the link between your own reading and the other source, internal or external, right? How they're different or how they're similar, right? Or how they're both similar and different, right? So I think the external link need to state how the reading and the external sources are related, right? Not only just showing what the external sources are about, right? And week one, the internal link section, there is a section about like linking back to week 2 actually, sorry, week 2's reading, right? Last week's reading about manufacturing creativity, right? So again, like so how this manufacturing creativity concept from previous week is linked to your own reading in this week, right? So in you need to show that it seems like okay, the manufacturing creativity means they are kind of K-pop music is like it's almost like so similar to each other, and the idols are so similar to each other. It's like produced in a factory, right? So that's what manufacturing creative means. But this week's your reading talked about one of the reasons why BTS is so successful is because they have their authenticity. So if something is created or manufactured in a factory, we don't say it's authentic, right? It's like the same, right? So how then BTS, are they really manufactured or are they really, really authentic, right? So in terms of they had really long kind of trainee period, maybe not as long as other idol groups, and during this period they live together and they practice their songs and music and dancing and everything so intensively, sometimes 15 plus hours per day, and they have this huge pressure for a certain image and certain like a beauty standard. They're very kind of similar to other idol groups, K-pop groups, manufactured, quote unquote, but then they are authentic. They're taken as very authentic because they were given creative freedom, like they can write their own music, and they're like they were given this self-expression, so they can freely post something or communicate with their fans through SNS. But some many idol groups in K-pop group members, they're banned from using like SNS, communicating directly with their fans because the agency is in control of their images, right? So in case they make an error or mistakes, the agencies don't want to risk any errors, any mistakes, right? If that free SNS communication with fans are allowed, those are allowed, right? So so in that sense, BTS is kind of different from from this manufactured K-pop idol groups. But one can question that maybe BTS agency that produced BTS, it was their clever strategy to let these members have creative freedom and self-expression freedom, right? Maybe that was their strategy to kind of nurture BTS's authenticity, and maybe the agency already pre-planned, well, they knew the authentic K-pop idol groups maybe they will do better than, so manufactured kind of a group, right? So yeah, we can say they're authentic, but also their authenticity maybe has been cultivated by a very, clever strategy by of the agency, right? Although that doesn't make this group any less authentic, right? And discussion questions were thoughtful. And, when you come up with discussion questions, you have to think that whether this question can be answered based on the readings and based on maybe the average personal experiences by the audience, right? So some questions sometimes is very difficult to answer. It's beyond the reading. It's beyond one's, common kind of, experiences, right? So, be careful. Be mindful about, whether these questions are kind of answerable or it's too difficult to answer, right? I think the second question was, more audience friendly in that sense. And the presentation itself, like the format was very creative, like a podcast, right? And then the PPTs were really well made and a lot of work put on. And the verbal presentation was very clear and almost professionally done. But at the end, the division of labor and the reference list, this information was missing. Well done, Group 1 members. Let's move on to Group 2's presentation. The presentation has a good organization with good and both good intro and body and conclusion. And it was nice to see all group members' faces and names. And it also had a great coverage of the reading. And in terms of the linking section to external source like live or live streaming, it needs to clearly state how the external sources relate to the reading. And the linking section, the internal reading or to other external reading was well done because it has this comparison, right? When you compare, then you show the relationship between A and B, right? So in that aspect, the stating the relationship between the reading and other internal or external reading section was well done. And discussion questions were very thoughtful, and especially the first one, how K-pop fans are perceived differently across different cultures and countries and regions. That's worth think about. And especially, one aspect of it is that in North America, K-pop fans are perceived like a young female fans. But then for example, in South Korea, like the K-pop fans are more than just young female fans. They're like older fans. They're like male fans too, right? So there are this age and gender stereotypes as well, and also like Group 2's presentation talked about in North America, K-pop fans were like face like a double kind of marginalization, and they're perceived that they have some fantasy about Asian culture, or they're like very marginal. It's not the mainstream, but that's not the case in other countries, right? So for example, of course in South Korea, K-pop fans are not seen any way marginalized, but even like other Asian countries like Vietnam or Thailand, K-pop fans are not really marginalized. They're so also in terms of this marginalization of K-pop fans, we can see cultural or regional differences, right? And the presentation, the PPT slides were really well made, and the verbal delivery was really clear and well done, and was good to add a division of the labor and reference list at the end. And well done, Group 2 members, of like how you can, enjoy someone else's culture, but you don't, and then at the same time, you avoid fetishizing the culture, right? So this concept of cultural appreciation and cultural appropriation is a kind of important concept that we have to think about, right? So what's the difference, right? You enjoy others' culture, right? You're doing basically very similar things, but what's the difference? So you have to look at the intention. Why? why you're doing it, what's your intention when you enjoy other people's culture, right? So cultural appreciation is that your intention is to learn, genuinely understand the different culture, right? That's your intention. But cultural appropriation, it's not about learning, it's about like taking away some element of other culture without this true intention of understanding or respecting this culture, right? And open, because of lack of understanding and respect, often these borrowed cultural elements are used very superficially or inappropriately, right? Then that way you just if you do this cultural appropriation of other culture, you kind of end up perpetuating this stereotype and disrespect others' tradition, and sometimes you erase marginalized cultures, especially when mainstream, the people who belong to mainstream culture, when they just take away like a minority group's culture, you may just take it as if that's yours, then represent as if that is yours, then it can contribute to the kind of erasing this minority culture, right? So to avoid, but then the cultural appreciation and appropriation, it's not really a clear cut. It's very blurry sometimes, depending on the context, and one's intention sometimes are not really. You cannot really see someone's intention because it's invisible thing, right? So who you are talking to, like it can be different. Oh, I'm not appropriation. I'm not appropriating. I'm appreciating, right? But then if that person's intention is misunderstood, right, then it can be seen as like appropriation too, right? So to avoid this cultural appropriation, we really need to be sensitive, and we need to be respectful for different cultures, right? That's the key thing. And the next week, for today, tonight, you have to choose your pair work partner. And it's a pair work, but then I got a few emails about, making the group like 2 to 3 members. So I think maybe being flexible is not always bad. It may work out for everyone's favor. So groups of 3 will be allowed, but if you choose to work with 3 members, your report should be longer by 130%, right? So whatever it is, if it's 1,000 word, then you have to write 1,300 word. So because I designed this project as a pair work, so you can individual work will have more like a weight on it than like a group of 6 or 7, right? So adding one more member should show the third member's work. So maybe by make the project length longer by 130%, whatever from the whatever given, right? I don't think it should be 150% quite, because the intro and conclusion will be similar, even though it's 2 or 3 members, right? Regardless of the number of group members, right? And next week we will have a synchronous meeting at 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday, October 1st, right? And there will be no group presentations next week. And at the meeting, I will share some previous works of the group work, and also the final project, the video report format. Okay, so I hope to see all of you next week. Okay, thank you for your attention. Bye.